2007. The iPhone is introduced to the world and goes on sale later in the summer. American troops surge on Iraq to turn the war around. Tragedy strikes at Virginia Tech. The world is introduced to Dr. Sheldon Cooper. Britney Spears shaves her head and then goes into rehab. The Texas Rangers score 30 runs in a single game. Boise State mark their place in history with the Statue of Liberty. The Boston Red Sox win their second World Series in 4 years. The Spurs win their third title in 5 years. The Ducks capture their first Stanley Cup. And Peyton Manning wins his long-awaited Super Bowl with the Colts. The Departed wins Best Picture. The Dixie Chicks win Song of the Year for Not Ready to Make Nice. And The Sopranos finale airs the great 2007 was also a transitional year for theme parks. Some chains were coming out of a reckless decade of expansion, and 2007 was the first sign of major trouble. Other chains were making big plans for the future all over the world. 2007 was also a transitional year for coasters, as the focus of parks and manufacturers completely shifted in a way that still affects us today. These are the year's 10 biggest events that changed the theme park industry. As always, here are the stories that didn't quite make the list. And now for the top 10. April 30th, 2007. Universal announced its deal to build a $2.2 billion park in Dubai, a city in the United Arab Emirates that was booming in the mid-2000s. The park was supposed to bring in 5 million visitors a year and open in 2010. May 9th, 2007. Paramount Pictures announced their intentions to build a $1 billion park in South Korea to open in 2009. June 26, 2007. Paramount Pictures announced another deal with a Middle Eastern real estate company to build another theme park in Dubai, using the Paramount brand for theming. November 26, 2007. Universal makes news again by announcing a deal to build a $3.1 billion theme park resort in South Korea. What do all these projects have in common? None of them ever happened. The grand plans of the entertainment industry took a big hit during the Great Recession of 2008, and a lot of the amazing plans for Dubai were abandoned, including the Paramount and Universal Park. The South Korean Universal project was delayed and officially scrapped as recently as April of 2020, but the Paramount Park in South Korea was revived in 2018 and is set to open in 2025. Kennywood is an ancient park near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and had been run by two families for nearly a century. F.W. Henniger and Andrew McSwiggan purchased the park back in 1906 and formed the Kennywood Entertainment Company. And along the way, they picked up other northeastern parks, including Idlewild Park, Sandcastle Water Park, Lake Compounds, and Storyland. December 11th, 2007. Kennywood Entertainment announced that all 5 of these parks would be sold to Parques Reunidos, a Spanish entertainment operator with parks all over the world. It was truly the end of an era for this family-run chain, now in its 4th and 5th generation of ownership. All of these parks are still under Parque Reunidos, now run by their American subsidiary, Palace Entertainment. Whether these parks are better off now than they were before is up for debate, but Kennywood has seen 2 major coasters over the next dozen years, Skyrocket and Steel Curtain. The Mall of America opened as and remains the largest shopping mall in America. It's located in Bloomington, Minnesota, not exactly known for its warm climate, and a perfect spot for an indoor theme park. Knott's Camp Snoopy opened with the mall back in 1992, later dropping the Knott's name and just being called Camp Snoopy all the way up until 2006. This is when the mall declined to renew its license with the Peanuts characters and was rebranded as the park at MOA. This upset a lot of people. The mall had Snoopy and the gang from the start, and the creator of the Peanuts, Charles Schulz, was a native of Minnesota. The mall's stance was that the Peanuts was an old and tired brand without any opportunities to expand. The park needed a new identity. March 3rd, 2007. The Mall of America agreed to a partnership with Nickelodeon, and for the 2008 season, it would be rebranded and rethemed as Nickelodeon Universe, kicking off the new era with a Gerstlauer Eurofighter, SpongeBob SquarePants Rock Bottom Plunge, as well as an Intamin Surf Rider, Avatar Airbender. Enough time had passed, so it didn't seem like Nickelodeon was pushing the Peanuts brand out, and the mall now had a modern brand with new characters constantly coming along that would appeal to kids and families. Nickelodeon Universe is still going strong today, and when the 555 group opened another massive mall in New Jersey for 2019, they opened a second Nickelodeon Universe park at the American Dream. June 1st, 2007. Universal Orlando announced the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, a theme park within a theme park, to open at Islands of Adventure. Harry Potter is not a Universal brand, but they were able to swing a partnership with Warner Brothers Entertainment. They knew that the ability for Harry Potter fans to visit Hogwarts and fully immerse themselves in the Wizarding World would be a massive draw. They were right. It opened to critical acclaim in 2010, including rides like the incredible Forbidden Journey, and even expanded the Harry Potter theme into the main Universal Park in Orlando in 2014 with Diagon Alley, and built the Hogwarts Express, which will shuttle passengers between the two Harry Potter themed areas in each park. Universal capitalized on this partnership in 2014, when they brought the Wizarding World to Universal Studios Japan, then to Hollywood in 2016, and next to Beijing in 2021. The move was a masterstroke for both parties involved, and they did the brand justice. June 21st, 2007. 4:56 p.m. 3 girls boarded Superman Tower of Power, a second-generation Intamin drop tower at Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom. When the ride was about a quarter of the way up the tower, the ride operators heard a loud bang and saw that one of the lift cables had snapped. Some of this cable fell down and hit all 3 passengers, wrapping itself around the feet of one of the girls. Rather than e-stopping the ride immediately, the operator called for help first, and wound up hitting the e-stop button too late. The car had already dropped from the top of the tower, and the girl's feet had been severed. This prompted the closures of all second-generation Intamin drop towers, as well as all newer models, across all Six Flags and Cedar Fair parks. The cable had been inspected months earlier by the state and was deemed safe, even though it was not provided by Intamin and was thinner than required. Other drop towers of its kind were found to have a similar flaw in the cable, and these were corrected. And an e-stop button was added to the enable panel, in addition to the one on the operator panel. Plenty of these second-generation freefall towers exist today, and all of them have these upgraded safety measures. But Superman Tower of Power was removed after this accident, and the park's attendance plummeted, causing Six Flags to shut it down 2 years later, and it would stay shut before its revival as an independent park in 2014. August 27th, 2007. Canada's Wonderland announced that they would be opening the country's tallest and fastest coaster, the B&M Hyper Behemoth. It was the park's biggest investment in their history, coming in at $26 million. It would also feature brand new prototype trains. Other B&M Hypers used the 4-across trains, but Behemoth would have staggered seating, creating an unobstructed view for its riders, and making for a very long train. But the reason that this was such an important coaster for the industry was because of who owned the park. Cedar Fair had just taken over the Paramount Parks for the 2007 season, and up to that point, their only move for their new acquisitions was to relocate a Vekoma Flyer to Kings Island. This was proof that Cedar Fair was not going to be an idle bystander with their new Paramount Parks. They wasted no time getting a signature attraction into Canada's Wonderland, and they did the same for every single one of their other new parks in the years to follow, transforming them from decent parks into elite parks. September 7th, 2006. Cedar Point announces their first new coaster in 4 years, an Intamin Blitz coaster, Maverick. No doubt that this would be an extreme thrill ride, but it didn't quite fit in with the recent trend of Cedar Point additions. 2000. The park adds the world's first Giga Coaster with Millennium Force. 2002. Wicked Twister becomes the world's tallest impulse coaster, the only one with 2 twisted spikes and the only one to top 200 feet. 2003. Top Thrill Dragster crushes the height and speed record for any coaster on the planet. But in 2005, its records were broken by Kingda Ka at Six Flags Great Adventure, an intimate accelerator coaster nearly identical to Dragster. Cedar Point would no longer be chasing the big records. Instead, they decided to focus on extreme elements and the forces they deliver. Maverick only stands 105 feet tall, but features a 95-degree drop and an LSM lift hill, as well as sharp tight turns, inversions, a launch mid-ride, ejector airtime hills, and stangle dives. It was even designed with a heartline roll, but that needed to be removed before opening because it was too extreme for the track. Maverick showed the coaster world that the major records no longer needed to be broken. An amazing coaster doesn't have to be the tallest or the fastest. When RMC came along in 2011, they took this to heart, focusing on airtime moments and inversions over eye-popping stats. The height and speed record was being broken every couple of years on average from the 80s through the mid-2000s, but both records have now stood untouched for over a decade, despite more coasters being built now than ever before. July 9th, 2007. Reports emerged that Cedar Fair was shopping itself to private equity firms for anywhere between $3.3 to $4 billion. This included $1.8 billion of debt that would need to be absorbed in the deal. The chain had just acquired the Paramount Parks for $1.2 billion the year prior, and were looking for a way to handle its debt without cutting ties with existing parks. The deal apparently would require the current management to stay on board also. One contender was the Blackstone Group, which declined a deal with Cedar Fair, but 2 years later would acquire the SeaWorld chain. July 31st, 2007. Cedar Fair denies that a deal has been struck to sell the company to Destiny Capital for $4.1 billion. It's questionable if a deal ever actually existed here, but ultimately, Cedar Fair was not sold in 2007. The company was still profitable. They were confident in their new acquisitions, but there was one park in their portfolio that would be thrown overboard before the end of the year. September 21st, 2007. Cedar Fair released a statement confirming that they will close the Geauga Lake Amusement Park, ending its 119-year run. 5 days earlier, the park ended its 2007 season without any official word regarding its future. So unless you were good at reading the writing on the wall, nobody was able to give the park a proper send-off. Cedar Fair had only owned this park for 4 seasons, acquiring it from Six Flags at a bargain price of $145 million back in 2004. And at the time, it was the world's largest theme park that included a big collection of coasters as well as an animal section. This is the part that used to be SeaWorld, Ohio. Cedar Fair had no interest in having animals in their park, so that side was shut down, which drove away the families and locals they depended on. And attendance went from 2 million in 2003 to 700,000 in 2004. It continued to draw in less than 1 million guests every year as Cedar Fair declined to put in any new attractions, other than to build the Wildwater Kingdom water park on the old SeaWorld plot. This water park would remain open and lasted all the way up until 2016. It was a sad end to this historic park. After a century of steady operation, Six Flags and Cedar Fair built it up and then tore it down over the course of 7 years, 2007 being the final chapter of Geauga Lake. January 16th, 2007. Six Flags announced its plans to sell 4 theme parks and 3 water parks for a grand total of $312 million. The buyer was Park 7F Operations Corporation based out of Jacksonville, Florida, who suddenly found themselves in charge of Darien Lake, Elitch Gardens, Frontier City, Wild Waves, as well as Whitewater Bay in Oklahoma City, Splashtown in Houston, Texas, and Waterworld USA in Concord, California. Six Flags reported that these 7 parks brought in $30 million in earnings and brought in 3.6 million guests in 2006. These are all small parks, but earlier in 2006, the chain was considering selling Magic Mountain, but never went through with it. CEO Mark Shapiro was happy to retain Magic Mountain and saw the sale of the other 7 properties as a good way to pay off their ballooning debt, a goal that started with the 2004 sale of Geauga Lake, as well as the sale of the land that Astroworld sat on the year prior. It was clear that Six Flags wanted to retain its major market parks and focus all of their efforts there. The chain's financial problems started to emerge in 2004, but they were still committed to major additions. We saw Kingda Ka, El Toro, the 2 Goliath Hypers, and Tatsu in 2005 and 2006. But they drew way back in 2007, just adding a pair of Pandemonium clones to Six Flags St. Louis and Fiesta, Texas. The company was scrambling to make things right, and it may have worked had it not been for the financial collapse a year later. We'll never know. The 4 amusement parks and 3 water parks all continue to operate after the sale. Six Flags went into bankruptcy in 2009 and re-emerged in 2010, building their brand back with a much stricter budget. But in 2018, they reacquired the rights to operate 5 of the 7 properties that they sold off 11 years prior: Darien Lake, Frontier City, and all 3 water parks. You can still visit Wild Waves and Elitch Gardens, but you might want to get to Elitch Gardens quickly. That may not be around much longer. Those are the events that changed the industry from 2007. If I left anything off, or omitted any important details, let me know in the comments below. This seems like the last year that some chains were optimistic before the bottom fell out of the economy, while others were already looking for solutions to problems that were about to get much worse. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like. That's the best way to show your support for the channel. And if you like this style of video, check out my other episodes on my playlist. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.